All right, well, I have the honor of introducing our very own Mayor Jim Gray first. So there's, in this body of research that Ken and Ed were talking about the externalities of concentrations of human capital, there are some studies that show that there's greater civic participation in university cities. When you get higher concentrations of folks with highly educated folks, they tend to participate more. And I would argue they tend to make better decisions because they elect mayors like we have up here on our panel. So first, let me introduce Mayor Jim Gray. So first elected in 2010, now in his second term as mayor. In his first term, as many of you may remember, Lexington was facing deficits. Mayor Gray cut nearly in half the city's annual employee health insurance costs and brokered an historic deal to reform the city's police and fire pension. I see Chris Bartley in the room, who was in the room with that. That preserved the retirements of more than 1,000 of our retired and active public safety workers, saving the city millions. A national actuarial firm labeled it the most effective pension reform in the country. Since then, he's invested in public safety, creating a fourth sector, police sector here in Lexington, and he's worked to revitalize the city's downtown by renovating the old courthouse, which is nearly done, and creating the town branch commons, which is something he's going to talk a little bit about today. And all that he does, Mayor Gray focuses on three core themes: creating jobs, running government efficiently, and building a great American city. So here is Mayor Jim Gray.
I'm going to follow the president's lead and use some notes, you all, so bear with me. This is quite a contraption here to deal with, yeah. But I know professors like it, yeah. Okay. I'm really grateful to be on this panel with two great mayors, Wade Troxell from Fort Collins, Chris Beitler from Lincoln, two of our University City colleagues. What I'd like to do, I'm going to take about 8 to 10 minutes to talk a little bit about Lexington, and as Scott said, a couple of projects that relate directly to the themes that we've been talking about today: competitiveness in a university environment, a university city environment. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Lexington. I'm going to start actually with the history of Lexington. Many of you may know this, but some of you may not, who are Lexingtonians or visitors. We were settled 242 years ago in 1775, 1 year before the Declaration of Independence itself was signed. Fast forward to 1830s or so. Henry Clay was then senator from Kentucky. He was later Secretary of State in the earlier in the Adams administration, actually. But so in 1832, Clay and the then mayor and a prominent merchant in town, Benjamin Gratz, they raised $1 million to build a railroad from Lexington to Maysville on the Ohio River, Kentucky. They didn't do this for cosmetics. They did it to stay competitive. Louisville at that time and other river cities were using riverboats, and trade was occurring on the rivers. So the railroad emerged, and this was Lexington's opportunity to stay competitive. The President Capilouto, mentioned that in the 1860s, I believe 1865 to be exact, the University of Kentucky was established. So the city and the university have been working together for a very long time. I don't have that remote. Do you have it, Scott? Help me. I've got a few slides, just a few. So, okay, here we go. Why don't you help me with it? All right. Okay, thank you. As he's doing that, what I'm going to show you all is today the identity symbol for the city. Some of you, again, know this, but those are visitors. I'm going to share it. This is this was developed, the identity symbol of the Blue Horse was developed about 12 years ago now. And to represent what then the designers, the graphic designers that helped us with this, they said, they examined Kentucky, they examined Lexington especially, of course, and they said, you're not going to escape the horse, fortunately. Horses, basketball, even bourbon have a history here, prominent history in Lexington. But they said you want to celebrate it in a perhaps new and unique way. So they took an image of the stallion Lexington here in the 1850s and prominent, and they took that image and they stylized it. And what were they representing is in this juxtaposition? They were representing that there's a long history here, a long history, but there's also a direction forward and a twist, perhaps, on it to suggest that there's inventiveness here, there's creativity here, and there's a contemporary way of looking at things, which has a lot to do, of course, then with a university city, a university environment, where so much is about looking forward, taking our history, taking the lessons from our history, and then looking forward. So Scott, help me with this. You're going to have to, I am not accustomed to the professor's role, so. All right, that one. All right, I can get it now. Nope. You've got some new ones in there. So, dialing forward. Thank you, sir. I can get it now. I hope. All right. So we have this amazing real juxtaposition that's underway in our city. We have a merged city-county government. And at the time, a little before that merger, the city made a decision. I'm going to move on here. You all just hold this bucolic image here, but we'll hold. I'll talk about this. The city made a decision almost 50 years ago that we were going to create an urban services boundary to focus on preserving what's really remarkable and unique and special about our city, and that is the horse farms, the agricultural environment, that industry, and what makes it special. All right, so that means focusing on infill. Now, as Professor Glazer said, there's a challenge associated with that, and Professor Trotsky also. There's a challenge associated with that. So we have to be thoughtful and we have to be careful. That's why every 5 years we examine this question. We're examining that issue today. We're thinking about better ways to even examine that question and issue. So today, yes, the city is known for basketball, bourbon, and horses, but increasingly we are known as a research and technological hub, a knowledge economy built around the university and its medical center. So we are thriving. The president said to me not long ago, we made a trip to Birmingham, his hometown in many respects, and what's going on in Birmingham is a similar dynamic to what's going on in Lexington. But he told me a story, he said, and why this is so important in the university city, why being competitive. He said this, he got a call he was recruiting a researcher couple, man and his wife, and he was talking to the wife, and she said, Mr. President, she said, I want to live in a city that's alive, that's really engaged, that's thriving, that's vibrant. That's a place where I want to live. And so what he said, it confirmed for him that the university's competitiveness and a vibrant city, in many respects an animated city, an active city, that this is essential for the university's competitiveness. Hence, it goes to a couple of projects that I'm going to describe. And thankfully, we have some of my administration's senior people here, our administration's senior folks here. Aldona Valicenti is working on one of these projects. And Aldona, hold your hand up, our Chief Information Officer, along with Scott Shapiro. We have several of our folks from the administration. Thank you, Glenn, for being here, Charlie for being here, and others. So 2 projects. One has to do with placemaking and the competitiveness offered through placemaking, quality of life, quality of place. And that's the image that we've got up here. The second has to do with technology and building a technological infrastructure. So this first image is of the Town Branch Greenway, Town Branch Commons project. It represents 3.2 miles of a linear park through the heart of the city, along the path of the Town Branch Creek, which was the water source around which our city was settled in 1775. This project will link 22 miles of bicycle and pedestrian trails, the Town Branch Trail and the Legacy Trail. And what's unique about it is it will go through the downtown, creating something else that's important in a 21st century university city. Separated bicycle lanes, pedestrian, walking lanes, along this path, this 3.2 miles. Oh, that's all right. Yeah, keep going. Now, what does it, again, this goes back to what the president had to say about competitiveness. This will be literally a couple of blocks from the northern part of the campus, the university's northern border of its campus. So just a couple of blocks, the university and the downtown are today. And that arguably will, over the next few years, that border will probably just go away as the city and the university become closer connected. So this, in many respects, as Mary Lynn Capilouto, Dr. Capilouto's wife, Dr. Mary Lynn Capilouto, who's on the advisory board for the Town Branch, she says it becomes, in many respects, the front door, the front yard to the university. So this is another image. This is along today Vine Street. It's hard to imagine that on our Vine Street today, isn't it? But it is a real potential. Now, we've gained almost $40 million in funding for this project already in public funding, and $5 million has been raised from the private sector for what will become the Town Branch Park, which this is an image of 8 to 10 acres behind Rupp Arena and the convention center as renovated. This project was designed, by the way, by a woman named Kate Orff. Kate was just in this last week, I think on Monday, was named a MacArthur Fellow, which is a MacArthur Genius, which is a extraordinary tribute to her. And in the video, if you happen to take a look at it, in the video that the MacArthur Foundation released, Kate talks about the Town Branch Park, the Town Branch Linear Park, Town Branch Commons. Now, the last project that I'm going to mention, and it's going to be very quickly because I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Troxel, and then after Mayor Troxel, Mayor Beitler, and then we will have some questions. The last project, and this is one I mentioned that Aldona has been so involved in, our council members, along with Jake Gibbs and Vice Mayor Kay, been involved in this project as well as the Town Branch, vigorously involved in these projects, and I thank them for that. The last project is and I have no image on this, but we're working on a gigabit project, and what's that look like? Well, like most cities, we have a cable company and a legacy telephone company. And like most, there's not much competition for the internet services or access or cable TV. So we're aiming to change that, to bring in a fiber optic network that transmits data at the speed of light at gigabit speeds, 1,000 megabits a second. So this is very much like the city of Chattanooga has done, a few other cities around the country, but it is all about staying competitive, and especially staying competitive in this university cities. We know that we need to be engaged with the outside world. That's what the president was talking about earlier, without limitations. We know that it's not easy, that every city in the country is working on it, but we got a head start of a couple of years, and that's what it's all about in staying competitive.